Turf Business TV are at Devonshire Park today. We're at an event with Plumpton College, put on by Danny Negus, and I'm joined by the grounds manager for the Emirates, Paul Ashcroft. Paul, thanks very much for your time here today. What we want to discuss with you in front of this audience is your career and how you actually got into the industry. So what was the first attraction for you?
I grew up in agriculture. My father was a farmer. Like most young men out there, I was interested in football as well. I played football as a YTS for Blackpool. Unfortunately, I didn't make the grade. So it was at that point I decided it's either going into agriculture or turf. And thankfully I chose Eastbourne College to do an MVQ level 2, and then I did my ND for 3 years.
And after that, what was it, straight to Arsenal? Was there anything in between?
I had 2 placements at Eastbourne. The first one was with Mallingtons, which is a contractor building pitches, and then my last placement was at Wembley, the old Wembley. At that point, it was its final year. It closed down, and at that point, I looked around the industry for jobs. Unfortunately, Arsenal were building the training ground. Steve Braddock was the head groundsman. He was moving his responsibilities slightly more to the training ground. Paul Burgess was moving up to the head groundsman there, and I was fortunate to get the role as the deputy.
And how long ago was that?
That is 19 years ago. Yeah, so a long, long time ago. Yeah.
And your start at Arsenal, I mean, you started out at a big club.
Yes.
Was it what you expected when you walked through the door, or did you have kind of rose-tinted spectacles on?
It was better than what I expected.
Okay,
the quality of the playing surface was superb. I look back at the other pitches at that time, no discredit to the people out there, but Steve Braddock was doing things that we're actually still doing now with different equipment, but that just shows where Steve was at that point, stripping pitches back to near enough nothing with small hand mowers. It took over 3 weeks to do, but yeah, it was something that at that moment I thought, you know what, this is the best situation to be in for my development.
And your development there, you stepped up through the ranks, so you
Yes.
came in at what level?
As a deputy, under Paul.
And then when did you take the next step up?
Paul managed the transition from Highbury to the Emirates in 2006. Paul left in 2009. I moved up to the Emirates head grounds person's role, and then recently I've taken over the academy and also Boreham Wood. So Boreham Wood's a non-league team. Our women under 23s and under 18s play there. We've installed a Desso pitch, we have a member of staff and our equipment, and then our academy is where we host from 6 up to 16. We have 2 Astro pitches, 1 Desso and a normal pitch there.
Okay. If there's such a thing anymore as a normal pitch.
Indigenous, I would class, which doesn't drain. Yeah.
Okay. So in your time at Arsenal, it's a club that's changed a lot. The industry's changed a lot, I'm sure.
As a club itself, when I joined, I think we had 60 staff. We were winning Premier League titles. You look at us now, we're probably 600 plus. We're slightly further away from winning Premier League titles, but as a club itself, it's a huge corporate business now. So it's gone away from the sort of friendly side as a family club, where now, it's more structured. We have HR, commercial, all the departments that I have to liaise with, the legal team as well.
And do you think that has helped or stifled innovation, those changes?
I think it's helped. From our side, the technology we have now at the Emirates as a pitch construction is far better than what we had at Highbury. The lights, the FAV system, which is a forced air vacuum and ventilation, so allows us to push air and pull extra moisture out of the root zone. All those types of things make life easier, but you think we've gone into a stadium that's bigger, so the environment we're trying to grow that grass in is far more difficult than what Highbury was.
Okay. Challenging role in terms of the management of a team. You're working at a venue that is in the world's eye, and your work is on display to the world. I mean, that's got to be pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think with 19 years experience, you sort of forget about that pressure. It's something that's day to day. You expect this game's got to happen. I always remember I did a talk in one of our Be Heard surveys where We were discussing different projects over the summer, and the reconstruction of the Emirates came up, and they asked, well, how long have we got to turn this around? It was a 13-week project. We had 5 weeks to grow it in, and someone from the commercial stood up and said, well, what happens if it's not ready? We turned around and said, it will be ready. We have no choice. We'll be playing the Emirates Cup on that date.
Yep.
And I think everybody in that room then understood that we have no, we talk about contingency plans. We're not going to move the Emirates Cup to another stadium. The club, if we couldn't host that, we would probably lose millions of pounds. And at that moment, I think a lot of people understood that what comes with this type of role and the pressures that come with it.
And there's pressure at work, but I'm sure pressure on family life as well, because we were just talking over lunch about how difficult it is to get a holiday in.
Yeah.
What a lot of people won't appreciate, if there's a game on Boxing Day, are you working Christmas Day?
Yes, yeah.
And your team are as well?
There is always someone working on our sites, no matter what day, someone will be on those pitches. So for the Emirates, we don't leave it one day because you just never know. The environment changes very, very quickly. So, and it does put pressure on staff, but I believe if the staff embrace what we try and achieve at the end and see that productivity, then they engage a little bit more, which is great.
And another form of pressure is living up to aspirations. There was, a stadium and a role that you took over. There's been some pretty heavyweight guys that have held that position before. Highbury used to win award after award after award. Did you relish that, or was that a weight on your shoulders?
I think a little bit of both. You look at Steve for what he's done, you look at Paul now at Real Madrid, fantastic. Did I have confidence in what I could do? Yes, I did. It's one where you still believe that we can improve. It's not that we've got to that point where, yeah, that's it now. It may not always, the pitch looks better. It may be that we reduce inputs in lighting units, fertiliser, water, just to become a little bit more sustainable. So those types of things people don't see on TV, but for us it's a big thing. So yeah, the accountability is huge, but I do enjoy it.
So give us a little insight. What's it like working at a world-class venue like the Emirates then?
Sometimes you take it for granted. I know the people I speak to outside of the industry, they can't believe that I work where I work, but it's my workplace, and sometimes you just go in, do your work and go home, and you can very easily just forget. One thing I like to do, especially for the stadium guys, is allow them to come to a game as a fan, because otherwise they consistently just come to work, go home, and it's a work environment. To see what they work for in the week, to see what all the fans see at the weekend is really, really good.
And when the club's successful, does it make things easier?
Yes, yeah, a happy club makes things better. My staff don't complain as much, budgets aren't cut, so those types of things do help. We've still got to deliver on the same quality of surface, but sometimes if we aren't in the Champions League, then yeah, we will have reduced budgets. And
then the commercial team are always knocking on the door, I'm sure, trying to have another event and do X, Y, Z, whether that's more pre-season friendlies or whether that's a boxing tournament or match or something. How do you deal with them? What's the relationship there like?
It's very good actually, and it's something that I've been proactive in building, because those people do have a large say in the club and the direction. For them to have clear understanding of what we're trying to achieve ourselves allows them to make educated decisions. If they don't understand what we do, then they'll try and put events in the middle of the grow-in. So what we put together is a document for senior management so they can understand at what times they have access to the playing surface in the summer, and also in the winter period, say international breaks.
Okay. One of the things I'm very aware of is, there's a lot of guys that are in top jobs. There are some that are innovators. There are some that kind of take the safe route. Where would you put yourself in that?
I would say innovator, but not with the lighting units.
Yeah.
We've got the lowest amount of lighting hours that we put on our playing surface, and it's something that I've been a key driver on within the club, is that sustainability is important. Okay. So from that point, yeah, 2-3 years ago, it's something that I wanted to reduce the lighting units. In 2009, we started to use the Clegg, which was one of the first stadiums to do that.
Right.
I look at everybody now, one of the most important things they've got is the Clegg hammer, doing more testing. So from that point, yes, I believe I am.
Okay. And what influenced you to kind of be a bit more innovative then? Who were your influences as a groundsman growing up?
I'm not going to say it's going to be a groundsman, but it's what I see as an injury itself. So like we've got all the different, so sports science, I will see the data that they acquire on a daily basis. And it was something that we needed some information to start to go back to them to prove that we are keeping services where they want them. So from that point of view, it wasn't to cover ourselves, but it was seeing that we are working together, which is important. Okay.
And we see more and more influence on groundsmanship because of that sports science and the firmness and the stability of the surface. Do you think that the developments that we're going to see in the future in turf care are going to be about the safety element? Is it going to be around sustainability? What are the big areas that are going to be focused on?
I think safety is key when we look at the actual value of these assets that are running around, because that's what they are. They're not football players to the club, they're assets. And we need to keep them safe, one, so they can play all year round, and also if the club feel it's the right time to sell them, then we sell them on in the best condition. So that's one where we try and give them the optimum playing surface, so they don't slip as much, they don't fatigue as much, and it's very important that they see our data. If they don't, they're sort of working blind, so we come together and we get that. Pitch constructions, will they be better because we don't have to put as much fertiliser, water, lighting units on? Then maybe, yeah, there are things we need to look at.
Okay. And in your role, I guess everybody probably thinks, oh, it's Arsenal, you must have a budget to burn. There must be plenty of money to throw at problems. Is that the case?
We have a budget that's been set, which unfortunately, due to our current position, has been reduced.
Is that no Champions League football?
Yes.
Okay.
So it does make life difficult. We just have to change things around, be a little bit smarter on what products we use. So, but that's my responsibility.
Okay.
As a manager, I understand the rest of the club are going through that, so it's something that we need to deliver on.
And I guess also from a professional point of view, it must be a really interesting place to be, because I'm sure there's plenty of knocks on the door with people with new innovations, different bits of kit that they want you to get involved in, perhaps endorse. Sure, you see a lot of stuff that,
Yes, we do see a lot of equipment. One of the things I've started to do lately is sort of go to agricultural shows. So not really within turf, but just so, the one thing I like about agriculture, it's about yield, it's about efficiency. So when you look at them trying to produce crops, they're streamlining things.
Right.
So it's like NDVI drones to check in on quality of the surfaces. It's something I'm going to bring in, which is huge in agriculture at the moment. And yeah, that from that point of view, I think they're quite innovative. So we then should follow that, and I believe we'll be more efficient from that.
With those innovations, I mean, a big topic at the moment is automation and robotics. Seems every week we see another automated mower or line marker. You got a view on where that's going?
Yes, I do believe we need to go down this line, trying to get staff to do those jobs. And the other point is that I always see football at the moment is very intense, and I can only see that increasing. So for us to be able to keep up with that pace, if we're not going to get more staff or budgets, we need machinery that can work at certain times that we're not there. So then a lot of my staff work in time in lieu. So if we don't have enough staff, they can't get that time back. So that's where the autonomous mowers, if say for example, you got 3 mowers working, at the moment we need 3 staff.
Yep.
In the future, if you have 3 mowers working and just 1 member of staff managing those 3, then you've got 2 more that either can be off on lieu time or doing other jobs. So yes, I do think it has a huge future.
But you're not looking at that to reduce staffing levels, you're looking at it to actually improve productivity?
Yes, and work-life balance.
Okay.
I see something that's probably not mentioned enough in our industry. It's a very hard industry, work outside a lot. Work-life balance, I hear this all the time in office work, or the work-life balance. We don't seem to discuss that in our industry. So by having that, yes, I believe it could be a positive.
Okay, and the whole mental health issue, which is part of work-life balance, really came to the fore a couple of years ago. Do you believe that's something that is going to be an ongoing issue, or was it just something that kind of was a bandwagon that was national media and kind of the turf industry jumped on?
No, it's something I've just recently been on a course for my staff. Okay. So then I'm a person they can contact now. Okay. If we need to discuss anything. So as a line manager, I need to be approachable. But yes, it's something that the club's brought in, that people can come and speak to the line managers at any point. It's something that people don't talk about enough, but it should be, definitely.
And without getting too detailed or too personal, there's been some high-profile guys that have actually held their hand up on Twitter and said, I've had issues, etc. Have you seen that your role has helped people already in your team, or is it something that you're just prepared for?
I think it prepares myself for that, but knowing my staff understand that the club are willing to help them in any way, that I'm approachable. It does, because if someone's coming to work, it may not be work related or home life, it could be that. So then at least they've got that point, I can speak to someone. We've got really good sort of perks within the club, like Booper, so like people can then do those things if they need to. Maybe not everybody's got that, but we are quite fortunate with being within a big club. We can do that.
Not everybody has that.
No, that's it.
And,
yeah.
Arsenal and Premier
But I'd
League
imagine most clubs have a HR department.
Yeah. And
they should have someone who they can go and talk to. People believe that, I can't go and speak to my work because of this. It's not. They should go, okay, we'll understand your situation, and it should be accepted. And I'm hoping that as it continues, it will.
Okay. Again, I think that's part of the whole kind of education topic.
Yes.
Another thing that needs to be educated on. We've got a room here that's full of students. Some will aspire to be the next Paul Ashcroft, the next Darren Baldwin, get to the very top. Some will be working in different areas. Some, work in local authority. At the end of the day, it's all about looking after grass, and there's certain ethics. What would you say makes the guys at the very top stand out and makes them a bit different?
I would say from the two that I've worked with is that they're extremely driven, and it's something that they've delivered on big projects, which can be underrated. But when just taking this as a stadium, when you're building something £260 million, which is quite cheap compared to Spurs' new stadium, but the one bit in the middle can sometimes be forgotten about, and if that doesn't meet the rest of the stadium, then everything it does fail. So from that point, it's been able to deliver. The accountability that people don't understand is huge. Drive those people. It's surprising if you're at the top. Not many stadium managers and directors are really pushing that person. It's left to that person to do that, and that's one of the things I believe is very, very important, that you must have that drive within yourself to get to the top.
And how do you see the role of a groundsman, a greenkeeper evolving? I mean, I think there seems to be a bit of a move to make environment become more and more part of the role. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Sustainability, but you can look at it two ways. A lot of these projects are heavily loaded in the capex. So then when you look over the payback of that could be something like 20, 25 years, which doesn't always make sense, because way things are changing technology, within 4 or 5 years, they'll be redundant. Yeah. So when you look at a payback, it's very important. And when you start to look over that period, I think that's too long. I believe the industry is going down the data side. So a lot more analysis is being done, soil science, moisture. We've just put in a system that monitors where they train, the intensity in different areas, so then I can put reports together for our football department, because they don't like to move from a certain area on a pitch. But I can show them that why it's like it is. If you just move to the side, then hopefully those types of things you can report it a lot easier, and they'll understand that. Doesn't always work that way, but at least it's in a report.
So that can be kind of like warm-ups, etc. So I think one of
Yes.
the big problems is goalkeepers in the goal mouth, so they warm up. They
Yes,
normally
yeah.
wreck the 6-yard box. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're fighting a battle to get them to
Move
to the
That's
side.
the problem. Yes.
And how many of them actually listen?
Not many.
Who's the worst? Go on, give us an insight.
To be honest, the Premier League now is a lot better. They do normally adhere to the rules. There has to be some flexibility in there. I'm not one of those, oh, you can't do that, but it's the way I am. I understand that they are there to warm up for the game, but it's that point when you tell them that what you're going to do now can be detrimental to the actual game, they start to understand a little bit. It's when it bobbles over their foot, and they look round and then they only look at me.
Yeah.
No one else, not themselves, it's just them.
So you're dealing there with what you call club assets, yeah? Multi-million pound players that are household world stars. They give you much grief?
No, we normally don't, which they don't say it's good or bad, which I take as a positive.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it normally works,
You're
yes.
going to be politically correct with me, eh?
Yes.
Okay. You spent your professional career really at Arsenal. What are your proudest and biggest achievements that you would put your hand up and say, yeah, I'm really chuffed about that?
The transition from Paul leaving to me taking over.
Right.
I don't believe there was a difference in playing surface quality, which is always the biggest thing for me. So once that was delivered, then the reconstruction of the Emirates, the redevelopment of our academy, where we spent £20 million, that was something that I was the lead from the facility side, so there was a lot of pressure on there. Small site, we couldn't have any failures in any of the systems we put in place. So that was something that I do believe has worked extremely well. Training all the staff down there, buying all the new equipment, and then we had the Boreham Wood project as well. Yeah. So they're the big projects. One of the things I do like to see is my staff developing and sometimes moving on. So for me, to see staff that I've worked with and developed at other sites and doing different things is something that means a lot to me.
Okay, well, I think Arsenal's been a bit of a production line for top class, world class groundsmen. Darren Baldwin, Paul Burgess, Scott Tingley at Watford, Scott Brooks at the FA St George's Park.
Yeah.
The list goes on. There's probably others that I don't even
Stuart Wilson,
know about.
he's
Stuart
one,
Wilson,
yes,
yeah. Okay. What do you think has caused that then?
I would like to say that Steve's 30-something years ago started it all, and I always say that to the club, that without Steve, we Paul, myself wouldn't be, and Darren wouldn't be where we are. The club has continued to understand the methods and what needs to go in the investment. So from that point, yes, Steve started everything, and I owe him, and so does Paul and Darren for where we are now. Sure. It's one where we have the right systems in place. The budgets are where they should be, staffing levels, but the things we do, we believe we do right.
We talked about doing things right and some of your successes. I'm going to ask you, just so we can prove you're human. When did you get it wrong? When have you had something that didn't work out as it should have done?
The second year after we reconstructed the Emirates, we had a breakout of brown patch. So we just seeded the playing surface, we'd covered it, and we had freakish weather. We had a root zone temperature of about 28. So at that point, brown patch is rife. The seed was only very, very young. Within a day and a half, we'd lost 30-40% of the grass cover, which is devastating. And I've never witnessed something so aggressive. I've witnessed disease, but not to that extent. So it was something where then we had to go to our reactive mode. So it was the thought process, well, do we strip it out again, start with a clean pitch, or do we hand seed? So we ended up hand seeding all those areas, and we managed to get it ready for the first game of the season. But it was a learning curve, and I really do appreciate now what grounds people go through in sort of Spain, France, when they get really high weather, high temperatures and really high disease pressure, that these diseases that these guys deal with can wipe pitches out within 2-3 days. So yeah, something that it was frustrating, but we dealt with it. And are we better for it? I believe we are.
Okay, so you took the lessons from it, and
Yes.
you get a situation like that, you've
Yeah.
learned from it. Do you see that kind of weather pattern being more frequent? I mean, is climate change a reality?
Yes, it is. Yeah, there is no doubt. I can remember when I moved down to London in 2000, when we were working at Highbury, and we got to November and the hose pipes were freezing. Where now I look at the weather, we can have 20 plus degrees in November. So when we go into the real high disease pressure periods, it makes life very, very difficult. So the amount of rain that we have in short periods is far higher. So instead of being 1, 2, it can be up to 15 mil. So it definitely is changing. And I believe it's shifted back a month. So yeah, like I said, November's warmer, but then March tends to be a little bit cooler. Everything takes longer to pick up. So when we start renovating, it's a little bit slower.
And you've obviously had to adapt your approach.
Yes, yeah. It's something that when I look at how we do things, we have to put an emphasis on product suppliers. So like when we're talking disease pressure, I'm talking to seed growers that testing on certain diseases need to be done. There's nothing out there, so brown patch, leaf spot, fusarium, we need to be seeing that they're helping us, because in a few years when we look at some of the chemicals that are going,
Yep.
the biggest issue will be disease, and the climate certainly isn't helping with that.
This stage, you're happy to take questions from the audience. If there's anybody who's got a question, if they can just put their hand up and we'll get the mic over to you.
Hi there. Just wondering what sort of the football manager, Wenger or whoever, asks. Does he ask stuff from you, the watering and length of pitch or anything like that, or are they not involved at all?
Arsenal always wanted the surface to be as quick as possible, so it never changed no matter who we were playing. The new manager sometimes will request different things, but overall he wants it as quick as possible. But the problem where we used to have Tony Adams, when he was getting older, he didn't want it watering. Freddie Lundberg wanted it watering.
Right.
So there was only one winner there, unfortunately, and that was Tony Adams. So yeah.
So they do ask and have their say?
Yes, a long time ago. It doesn't seem to be now. They just expect it to be as quick as possible, and that's it.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got a question?
Chris from Devonshire Gardens. We've heard a lot today about hybrid pitches. Just be interested to hear your view on where you think it's going. I mean, I can remember the first AstroTurf pitch, if you like, back at Loftus Road, and things have developed a lot since then. Just be interested to hear where you think it's heading and how the development of that will affect the industry as a whole.
As in artificials or hybrids, as in Deso
Yeah,
and Cis?
Do you think that more higher levels of football would be played on artificial pitches?
What we find within football is academies will accept artificial surfaces, but when you get past 16 and up, they want it to be grass. It's something it's an unwritten rule. We have them at the academy and they're quite happy to utilise them. The reason we place 2 in there is the size of the site is very small. With natural grass even being hybrid, we wouldn't be able to deliver on those hours, so it's very important that we put the right pitches in at the start. We do conduct injury audits every single year. It's a bit hard to understand the data when we talk about children who are still growing. But when we get above 16, it's like, right, okay, if they have to play on Astro, they can. But if they're coming back from injuries, no. But normally it's purely grass or a hybrid system, yeah.
So you don't see it becoming more
No,
like artificial fibres into the...
No, I think at the moment where the percentages are fine. We can manipulate. You put too many fibres in, then you can't manipulate the actual readings, so the clegg, the traction, those. So where it is at the moment, I believe it will stay.
Okay, thank you.
And there are a number of different hybrid surfaces out there.
Yes.
Aren't there?
Yes.
People mention Cis, they mention Deso, but you've got Mixto.
Yes, which is sort of more the lay and play ones. We've got the Hero at the academy, which we're looking at. They add a different dimension to the industry, a little bit more flexibility. So when you look at your club's business plan, how aggressive it's going to be in the summer period, if you've got long enough to grow in, then you would probably stay with a stitch system where you can strip it out, seed it. But then if you're looking at maybe 2-3 weeks, then yeah, so the lay and play ones become an option. So those systems have given clubs the ability to be aggressive in summertime.
And you've got another option, which is air fibre, which I know you got. Is it 2 or 3 pitches of that at the training ground?
Yes, we have 2 at the training ground at the moment.
That's like a cotton wool kind of thing that goes into.
Yes, cotton wool with cork, which one is a really fine sand, so it holds onto moisture well. It still drains at a good speed as well. So the players like that. It's one where you can manipulate. You don't have to wear 8 as much. So it's something we're still assessing and seeing how that goes over a longer period of time. Because sort of Deso, which we've worked with for over 15 years now, we know what that can do. So we're still, if you think we've only had the air fibre for 3 years, we will continue to develop that and see how it goes.
So I think my sum up of that would be not plastic pitches, but more options on hybrid pitches, certainly, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Has anyone else got a question?
I just recently qualified level 2 and done all like my certificates for spraying and all that stuff. A natural next phase is to do level 3. Is there any other courses that you would recommend to help development of skill?
From our point of view, with my staff, it would be a level 3. That's where we normally get them to, and then what we'll do, we'll pick, depending on which role they're in, where we can take them there. So we've had some staff who've done degrees, level 4s. So yeah, it's one where you feel comfortable yourself at what level you believe you can get to. I had one member of staff who completed his degree, Reece Watson, who's just recently left, but his growth within that, when he completed that degree, his knowledge was far higher. So to get to that levels, I would say it's a benchmark ideally. Not everybody can do that, but it gives you a really good understanding of the soil science, plant. So yeah, something to that level would be great.
I'm going to end up on one point, and thank you all for your input there. That's some really good questions there, actually. I'm not that surprised, but it's good to get them. Recruiting staff, yeah. We're here with some people that are mostly in education. Yeah. What attracts you to a potential recruit? What are you looking for from people?
Obviously, their experience is very important on their CV. It's not where they've actually worked, but even if it's the lower level, it's when you sit someone down in an interview and the passion comes over.
Right.
So I've had people work at a high level, but they sit in front of me and there's not that much comes back. But then I've had people who've worked at local cricket grounds. They don't probably know as much, but what they do know, it comes across that they care.
Okay.
And that's one of the biggest things, because we can develop, once we get them in and we know they've got that desire and hunger, it's my responsibility and my head guys to develop them to the next level. So yes, it's very important that they have that from the start.
And apart from education routes, to develop into somebody that Arsenal would want to recruit, for instance, what would you suggest aspiring groundsmen and greenkeepers do?
Like we have match day divoters, people who reach out and say, I want to come and work at the Emirates on a match day. It's basically a years long interview for us.
Right.
It's really good that we can see someone it's not a stressful environment, it's a match day, it's a nice environment, but at least we get to work to them, see them. So for us, that's a nice transition. So if there's ever any opportunities out there to volunteer match days, not at the Emirates, but at other facilities, I would recommend doing that.
Okay, great. Well, Paul, thank you very much for taking time out to come down here and
no
make
problem.
a trek to
Well,
the
thank you very much.
And thanks again, Danny, and thank you, everybody.